when he sent us the 12, did nowhere send out a woman, for the head of the woman is the man, and is it not reasonable that the body should govern the head? This was rubbish. But it was for this very reason that dozens of Gospels were not selected, because they made it quite clear that there were very many active women in the ministry of Jesus. Mary Magdalene, Martha, Helena Salome, Mary Jacob Cleophas, Joanna. These were not only ministry disciples, they're recorded as priestesses in their own right, running exemplary schools of worship in the Nazarene tradition. In St. Paul's epistle to the Romans, Paul makes specific mention of his own female helpers, Phoebe, for example, whom he called a sister of the church, Julia, Priscilla, who laid down her net for the cause. The New Testament is alive with women disciples, but the church ignored them all. When the church's precepts of ecclesiastical discipline were drawn up, they stated, "It is not permitted for a woman to speak in church, nor to claim for herself any share in any masculine function." But the church itself had decided that this was a masculine function. The church was so frightened of women that it instituted a rule of celibacy, the rule for its priests, the rule that became a law in 1138. The law that persists today. Well, this rule has never been quite what it appears on the surface, because, when one reads the rule, when one studies history, one can see that it was never, ever sexual activity as such that bothered the church. The specific definition that made this rule possible was priestly intimacy with women. Why? Because women become wives and lovers. The very nature of motherhood is a perpetuation of bloodlines. It was this that bothered the church, a taboo subject: motherhood, bloodlines. This image had to be separated from the necessary image of Jesus. But it wasn't as if the Bible had said any such thing. St. Paul had said in his epistle to Timothy that a bishop should be married to one wife and that he should have children, that a man with experience in his own family household is actually far better qualified to take care of the church. Even though the Roman Church authorities claimed to uphold the teaching of St. Paul in particular, they chose completely to disregard this explicit directive to suit their own ends, so that Jesus' own marital status could be strategically ignored. But the church's celibate, unmarried image of Jesus was fully contradicted in other writings of the era. It was openly contradicted in the public domain until the perpetuation of the truth was proclaimed a punishable heresy only 450 years ago in 1547, the year that Henry VIII died in England. It's not just the Christian New Testament that suffers from these sexist restrictions. A similar editing process was applied to the Jewish-based Old Testament, and this made it conveniently suitable to be added to the Christian Bible. This is made particularly apparent by a couple of entries that bypassed the editor's scrutiny. The books of Joshua and Samuel both refer to the much more ancient book of Jasher. They say it's very important. The book of Jasher. Where is it? Not in the Bible. Like so many other books, it was purposely left out. But does it still exist? Yes. The 9-foot Hebrew scroll of Jasher still exists. It has been historically important for a long time. It was the jewel of the court of Emperor Charlemagne, and the translation of the Book of Jasher was the very reason that the University of Paris was founded. In the year 800, that was about a century before the Old Testament that we know was actually put together. Jasher was the staff-bearer to Moses. His writings are of enormous significance. The accounts relate to the story of the Israelites in Egypt, to their exodus into Canaan. But these stories differ considerably from the way we know the story today. They explain that it was not Moses who was the spiritual leader of the tribes who crossed the Red Sea to Mount Sinai. The spiritual leader was Miriam. At that time the Jews had never heard of Jehovah. They worshipped the goddess Asherah. Their spiritual leaders were largely female. Miriam posed, according to the Book of Jasher, such a problem for Moses in his attempt to create a new environment of male dominance that he imprisoned her, and the Jewish nation rose against Moses with their armies to secure Miriam's release. This is not in the Bible. So let's move to where the Christian story itself began. Let's look at the Gospels themselves and, in doing that, let's see what they actually tell us, against what we think they tell us. Because we have all learned to go along with what we are taught about the Gospels in schoolrooms and churches. But is the teaching correctly related always? Does it conform with the written scriptures? It's actually surprising how much we think we know, but we've learned it just from pulpits or from picture books, not from necessarily